Are you dealing with adversity in your business or life? Andre Norman is here to offer us all a little bit of hope.
Hi, I'm Emily LaRouche. Are you ready to make the journey from lawyer to entrepreneur? Every week I'm sitting down with people who have mastered the art of running a business and want to share with you the lessons they've learned along the way. Join me as we experience the highs, the lows, and everything in between as we learn, share, and grow together. Welcome to Share the Love.
Andre Norman, the Ambassador of Hope, is an international public speaker, TED presenter, advocate, and consultant. He's here today to talk to us about staying resilient while dealing with adversity and holding on to hope. Andre, you weren't always the Ambassador of Hope. Take me back to your youth in Dorchester, Mass.
Well, in Dorchester, Mass, my mom married her high school sweetheart, and she had 2 kids, my older sister, Janine, and my favorite sister, Amani. It was great for her and her husband and her 2 kids, but he had a habit of robbing banks. So he went to prison for bank robbery. Then she met my dad a short time after, local hustler, drug dealer type, and she had 4 more kids, my older sister, Naomi, my older brother, Eric, myself, my little brother, Anthony, who I've been feuding with for 50 years.
Wow.
We've been fighting forever. But he's my brother, so nobody else can bother him but me. And life was good, normal. You play, you run around the house, you eat. But my dad had a habit of beating my mom. So I would come home and they'd be in a fight. We'd be sitting at the table. He would hit her. It was just pandemonium and chaos. And what I didn't understand as a 5-year-old is this wasn't normal. I didn't get a chance to visit other people's homes and see how they were living. All I knew was what was happening inside of our house. And every day, you just never know what to expect. Is it going to be crazy today? Is it going to be normal today? And the truth is, what's normal when that's part of your daily routine? So you just got used to it. Then I would go to school, come home. Then one day coming home on the buses, white kids lined up and threw rocks at a bus. They called us names, niggas, porch monkey, and a bunch of other stuff. What I didn't understand, it was a busing crisis. Black kids and white kids were made to go to school together, and it was a federal judge who signed this order to make the world a better place. But he never called and asked me, did I mind having rocks and names thrown at me in the process of making the world a better place? And as a 9-year-old kid on a bus in the middle of Boston during the crisis, nobody explains things to you. And my father, unfortunately, had gone through the same thing growing up in Virginia. Kids threw rocks and names at him. So when it happened, he just flipped out from the sense of his pain came back. And he was emotionally wounded, and he couldn't help me because he was having flashbacks of his childhood. When my grandfather told him that's just the way it was. So as a 9-year-old, I'm left to process the busing crisis of Boston, and I don't process well at 9. One day the rock started, one day the rock stopped. For my mom, one day the beating started, one day the beating stopped. And she put him out the house. So now you have single mom, 6 kids living in the hood. You kind of know that story. We move around, we bounce around. I go to a new school. They give me a test, and they find out I'm illiterate, just like my dad. But back then, it wasn't a problem. They had a thing called the dummy class. They took all the kids who couldn't read and write, and they stuck us in one room and closed the door. But luckily for me, a teacher didn't say take mercy on me, but she just saw me, and she pulled me out of the dummy class, Miss Oliver. And she said, you're not a dummy. You just learn differently. And she took the time to find my learning style. And she taught it to me. It took a whole year for her to get my attention and get me to focus in and then even believe that learning was possible. Because up until now, this was just how life was. I can't read, I can't write, it's no big deal.
Was that the first person who said there's potential in you, Andre? You're more than the dummy class?
She would be the first person I can recount that says that went outside of her way in a way that I remember. I'm not saying nobody ever said, I don't want to go home, somebody yell at me. I was there for you when you were 6. My mother yells at me today. She took us all to the circus when we were kids. We went to the circus, we went to a bunch of places. Me and my mom was talking probably 5 years ago, and I said, I never went to the circus. I wish I could have gone. She said, what? I packed you up, I wrapped you up, I took all. She had 6 kids. She said, if I'd have known you would not have remembered going to the circus, I might have left you home. So I'm sure somebody might have said something, but the first person that I can remember was Miss Oliver in the 3rd grade. And she got through to me. And she taught me my learning style. And she said, you keep that. Don't let anybody take it from you. By the time I got to middle school, I found out I had another problem. It's called poor. We're poor. Nobody tells us in elementary school we're poor because we just run around and play all day. Middle school, kids have nice shoes, they have the designer pants, the designer jackets, the cool hats, money. We never had to carry money in elementary school. Everything was just given to us. In middle school, kids had money in their pockets. It was all this new stuff to me, and they made fun of me for not having. So I felt bad, and I started doing things after school, committing crimes to get money so I could keep up with the other kids, because my mom couldn't afford to give us the stuff we wanted. Not needed, but wanted. Mm-hmm. And at the time, when you're 13 years old, you think you need it because you have to fit in or your life is going to end. It's like, if I don't fit in, my life is going to end. And my second teacher stepped up, Miss Ellis, and she gave me a trumpet. And she got me into the band, and I started playing. And by the time I got through middle school, at the end of middle school, I was ready to go to the district high school with all my friends. We've been together since 3rd grade. And she said, Andre, you're not going to the district school. I said, why? All my friends are going. She said, you have a talent. You have the ability to play the trumpet extremely well. I'm going to send you to music school, to a magnet school. I didn't want to go. So I don't know anybody at the school. I don't have any friends over there. All my friends are going to the district school. I want to go there. And she told me no. She filled my paperwork out, and she made sure I went to the magnet school. I got to the magnet school. I went to the band in the morning. There was a room full of nerds. I was like, looking at them, they're looking at me. But I could actually play the trumpet, so they accepted me. So I played trumpet in the band in the morning. Then in the afternoon, I hang out with the thugs because I'm like halfway in the street half the time. And I did both for a long time. Then halfway through my freshman year, my friends are like, Andre, what's that box you carry all the time? I said, it's my trumpet. I said, man, you got to get rid of that thing. It's stupid. And we went back and forth, and in the end, they said either the trumpet or us.
Wow. So they didn't know Miles Davis and how cool that path could have been.
I didn't know Miles Davis.
Okay.
or Monk or Dizzy Gillespie. Nobody really taught me the history of music. My mom was in and out the picture. My dad was just not in the picture. So there was nobody really to do home study with us. Mom was working 2 jobs. Dad's just MIA. So I'm not getting the history of anything. It's just something I'm doing for fun. So it was friends or the trumpet. I put the trumpet down. And I tell people all the time, growing up poor is horrific. But people have grown up poor and made it. Growing up without a dad, devastating. But people have grown up without a dad and made it. But growing up without a dream, it's impossible. I don't care if you live in the city or the suburbs or the rural country. If you don't have a dream, you're not going to make it anyplace. And when I gave up my dream, unbeknownst to me, I ended my future. And I just drifted into the street, and I woke up one day in court at 18 years old, and they started reading off prison sentences. 7 to 10 years, 9 to 10 years, 9 to 10 years, 2 10-year sentences, 2 15 and 20-year sentences, then another 5. And when I caught my breath, the judge waited, and they put me in a van, and they sent me to the penitentiary. And when I got there, I was nervous. If anybody ever tells you they went to the state penitentiary and weren't nervous for the first time, they're lying, because I was scared to death. But when I got to general population, the thing was, it was a reunion of all my friends from the dummy class. Mm-hmm. Of all my friends from the principal's office, from juvenile probation, the guys who used to fight against downtown, everything. It was just, the whole prison was full of guys that I'd come across in my time. And if I didn't know them from my city, they were the same kids from other cities who did the same thing. And it was just a big, giant building full of people who had given up on life and quit. I tell folks something is hard for them to understand. Criminals don't go to jail. There's a lot of criminals walking around, stealing money, doing all what they want to do. You call it white-collar crime. Well, I'm not justifying or pointing the blame. The people who go to jail are the people who quit. I quit on Miss Oliver. I quit on Miss Ellis. I quit on Mr. Solis. I quit on all the people who try to help me. And because I quit on those folks, I quit on myself. Mm-hmm. And thus, that's where quitters go, to prison. And I stayed there for 6 years. My first 6 years I was just being a psychopath, getting in, joining gangs, doing what everybody else was doing. And you just learn that in prison, violence rules. In prison, anarchy rules. And the truth is, having grown up in the house, watching my mother be beaten, spending my whole middle school years on punishment in the house, I was like built to go to jail. I spent so many days in my room with the door closed that when they put me in the cell, it was like second nature. And the violence, I've been dealing with violence since I was 2 or 3. And I had 3 basic lessons. 1, if my mom can be hit, anybody can be hit. 2, that I'm going to dominate my space. And 3, I'm going to protect myself. Because when those kids threw rocks and names, nobody came. And that's when I walked in there, it was like picture perfect. It was like a fish to water. And my goal at the time was to be the #1 gang member in the state. And I actually made it to number 3.
Well, here's to having goals, right?
You gotta have, listen, you gotta have goals. If you don't have dreams, you perish.
Yep.
So
at least you had a goal.
I had a
That's
goal.
a start.
Yes.
All right, and then what happened?
I was at one particular story, I'll tell you. I was in a place called USP Lewisburg. It's where Al Capone did his time, big federal maximum security prison, one of the most dangerous in the country. And like almost every day, somebody was getting raped. That was just like the daily occurrence. Every day, somebody got raped. At night, 11 o'clock, when the guards made their count and they would leave, somebody would get raped. Throughout the day, somebody in the shower, this is straight out the movies, somebody will get raped. And then you learn to this is how life goes. Either you project weakness and get raped, or you project strength and you move on. So after about 25 days in this unit, I had an encounter with a guy who went to the guards and he told on me, AKA snitching. And snitching and jail does not go well together. So the guy snitched on me about the telephone, because I used to sell phone time. Now the whole unit's looking at me like, what are you gonna do, Drake? He snitched on you. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna show weakness or are you gonna show strength? And I'm sitting in my room like, whoa. I don't wanna get raped by 5 guys at 11 o'clock. So I got a choice. Either I hurt this man, I got a knife, either I go stab him, or I project weakness and I'm gonna have 5 guys trying to rape me later. And I look at people all the time, they're like, Andre, I could never do that. I said, what would you do? You're me. You're sitting in a cell on this big dorm, and you got 2 choices. Either you stab this man at 11 o'clock, or 11:15, you're gonna get raped by 5 guys.
It's an easy choice.
It became a real easy choice. And the first time I stabbed somebody, it wasn't to get a bigger name. It wasn't to be tough. It wasn't to represent my gang. It was because I was fearful of what was going to happen to me. And I'd rather go to jail for trying to get more time in jail for trying to stab somebody than have to call home talking about I just got raped by 5 guys.
Right.
So at 11 o'clock, I stabbed him. And my punishment, 45 days in segregation, they sent me to another jail. And I saw the respect and the response to the guys for my violent act, which only made me think that this is a cool thing and this is a way to live. And I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So, and the worst thing about that unit, one day in the unit, came in a block, and there was a little white kid, straight out of Central Casting. They shipped him in from LA. They must have. They went to Hollywood and said, give us the picture-perfect white kid victim. And he was like 5'5", blonde hair, blue eyes. He's sitting on the top bunk. He got his knees clutched, and he's crying. And as soon as I turned the corner and I saw him, the only thing that came to my mind is, you're at 11 o'clock. There's no way they're not going to rape you at 11. You're picture perfect. You're straight out of Central Cast, and you're sitting there crying. You could do no more.
Wow.
There's nothing more he could do to say rape me at 11 o'clock. I've seen it 100 times. I've heard it 100 times. It's second nature in the block. But for some reason with this kid, I wanted to tell people. I wanted to walk over, tap him, and say, listen, kid, go over to the desk. Tell the CO you're scared for your life. You want protective custody. Because at 11 o'clock, your whole world's going to change. But I didn't do it.
Did he know?
He just sat there crying. He shouldn't even have been there.
Wow.
6 o'clock, I didn't say anything. 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock came. They made the count. 11:05, they raped him. And I'll sit here and I'll tell you how tough I am. I'll tell you I've been in knife fights. I've been convicted of attempted murder twice in jail. I've had riots on airplanes. I can tell you a bunch of tough guy stories. But that day in that unit, I was a coward. Because I had a chance to stand up for somebody, and I didn't. And I have no excuse now. I had no excuse then. I should have walked over and said, kid, go to the desk, say yourself. But I didn't do it. And I lived my life with that regret. They said, what do you regret about prison? Not helping that kid in K-Dorm not be raped. Because I could have made a difference. There's not a kind of sort of maybe, but I didn't want to stand up to those other guys. I didn't want to say, hey, this is wrong. So I kind of like just turned the other way, like everybody else. And I don't know who or what everyone ended up, but I know his life has dramatically changed for the worse. And that day, the only way to describe it was being a coward. I could not tell the story, nobody would know. But my life is about telling the truth. And I was a coward that day, and somebody suffered.
Wow. I think that's an extreme example, but there's not a person alive who hasn't faced that in some moment where we were too cowardice to stand up and do the right thing. That's why they say the right thing is the hard thing.
The right thing is definitely the hard thing. So I've tried to live the rest of my life telling the truth and not being a coward because I don't like that feeling, and I don't like the way that made me feel that day, and I can't get rid of it because that's something that I did or didn't do that I could have, should have done, and I won't make that mistake again.
Was that a pivotal moment for you, or how far after that before you started to say, this isn't the road I want to go down anymore?
I was still in the middle of being crazy myself and acting out, but for some reason that kid just compelled me to want to help him. I mean, I'm like completely on a psychopath status. I don't care about anybody or anything, but for some reason I'm like, he doesn't belong here. See, in prison, I went to jail for robbing drug dealers. So I'm a criminal, they're a criminal, this is between us. In prison, I was charged with attempted murder. I've been charged with a lot of stuff, but it was me against other gang members. So it was us against each other. Mm-hmm. This kid just looked like he was there by mistake. Like somebody sent him to the wrong place at the wrong time, and he shouldn't have been there. Not that it makes it right that anybody else can be hurt, but it's just like, he's like a citizen. It's like he shouldn't even be here. And it was just something that sits with me. And I don't know when somebody else hasn't stood up for somebody, or when somebody else knew that they could have done something, whether it was sign a piece of paper, make a phone call, whatever that thing is. And the fact that nobody knows it doesn't matter because you know it. And if you try to hold on to it and pretend it didn't happen, it'll happen again.
Wow. So it got worse for you though, right? It got worse before it got better?
It got worse for other people. I mean, I got transferred 9 times to different states, different prisons, and every prison it was the same. I stabbed somebody, I beat up somebody, multiple people. And eventually they sent me back to Massachusetts. And on the way back, I got into a ride on an airplane. If you've seen Con Air, I lived it. They took me off the plane in Atlanta, Georgia on a stretcher, half dead, forced medicated, beaten, concussions. When I got to the hospital at the prison, the nurse is checking me out. I'm going in and out of consciousness. And the guard walked over. He said, I need this guy on a plane at midnight because he wasn't supposed to get off the plane. He only took him off the plane because he was dying. I don't know why they did it. He's supposed to be in Pennsylvania yesterday. Need him on the plane tonight. The nurse is like, well, he got concussions. He's still on the medication that you gave him. Y'all force medicated him. He's hurt. He says, I don't care. My manifest says this body, Pennsylvania. It doesn't say dead or alive. It says him, Pennsylvania. And they were going back and forth. And I'm kind of awake, fading out from the Thorazine. Then I heard her say, medical hold. And when she said medical hold, the CO lost his brain. He just went crazy. He started screaming and cussing at her and screaming, he's this, what are you talking about? You messing me up, I'm gonna get in trouble. She said medical hold. And he cussed her out bad because there's nothing he or anybody on his staff could do to override a medical hold. And she didn't care that I started a ride on the plane. She didn't care that I was a gang member. She didn't care of all the stuff I'd done in my past, all the stuff I was going to do next. She just did her job. She said, I'm not going to hold his past against him. I'm not going to judge his future against him. My job says he doesn't get on the plane because I know he might die.
Were you conscious, and what were you feeling, as you hear someone advocating for you?
I was in and out of consciousness, but I was awake. I used to have to struggle to stay awake because they force medicate you with Thorazine. It like moves through your system, and it just like, boom, it'll knock you out. And you come back. Over time, it lessens. So I'm probably like 10 hours in, so I was back to being semi-conscious. So I'm just hearing it. I remember it. And I woke up in a prison cell instead of on a plane at Atlanta. And it took me about a week or two to get my health back. And they put me on a plane eventually, and they sent me back to Massachusetts like 2 weeks late. But I just remember that lady had the courage to do her job. She could have said, hey, he's a gang member, take him. He started right on the airplane, take him. Oh, me and you are buddy-buddy, we're cool like that, take him. But she said no.
I think that's common with people is we look at people who are in prison. It doesn't matter if they, stole a loaf of bread to feed their family or they killed someone. I think most of society says they're criminals. Who cares what happens to them? They're not human. And I think it's amazing that she said, this is a man, this is a human. I'm going to treat him accordingly.
Right. And she did. I never forget. She just did her job. And she probably saved my life.
Wow.
And unlike me being a coward back in the dorm, she wasn't a coward, and she stood up to the COs.
Was that lost on you in that moment? Or
In the moment, I didn't get it. In the moment, I was on meds. In the moment, I was still in the middle of being a psychopath. So it's something I remembered post. I remember going through it, and my thank you to her is when I came out of my medication, I came out of the whole scenario, and they got me back to Massachusetts, I just kept getting in more trouble. But it was probably 2 years later when I finally woke up, a light went off. And I realized that I'd become the third ranking gang member in the state. And what I used to call myself was the king of nowhere. Because that's what it was. I'm in a maximum security prison in the middle of nowhere and out in the woods someplace, and nobody cares. I had convinced myself that being the king of a place nobody cared about meant something. And I came to understand that I was the king of nowhere. And this is what I tell folks in prison. If you're the king of the prison, kings must live in their kingdom. It means you're never getting out. I don't care how much time you're doing or not. If you're the king of the penitentiary, you will be in your kingdom. Donald Trump cannot move to France. Barack Obama could not move, to London. He couldn't move to West Africa. You, as the president, must live in your country. Mm-hmm. And when you make yourself king of the prison, you subconsciously have committed to living in prison. And what I realized, and most of my friends didn't realize, is just that we're striving to be the king, which means we're striving to stay in jail for the rest of our life. And we don't even realize it.
So how did this happen for you, though? Was it a day? Was it a week? Was it just one moment of clarity that everything came in front of you?
I had a moment of clarity when I realized that I was on a track to nowhere, and nowhere fast, and I was fast tracking it too. I wasn't walking, I was running down this path, trying to slam into the wall of nowhere. And I realized that this isn't where I wanted to be, and there was a lot of things that happened along the way that I just ignored, that said to me, Andre, it was all these flashing lights. You're going the wrong way, you're going the wrong way. But I didn't pay attention. When it came at an epiphany moment, I said, okay, you're the king of nowhere, you're going nowhere fast, your youth is going to pass you, and somebody's going to stab you in the head, and it'll be over. So I realized that I didn't want that. Then I remembered Miss Oliver, all the work that she did with me, all the kind words that she said to me. I remember Miss Ellis teaching me and walking me through becoming a musician. I remember Mr. Solis. I remember Mr. Bevilacqua. I remember every teacher that tried to help me. Even my juvenile probation officer, my first one, she tried to help me. But I just refused help from everybody. And I said, I'm going to do what they said I could do. I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm gifted. My mother's advice that always stuck with me, she said, boy, if you take 10% of your energy and put it to something good, you turn this world upside down. And I never understood it, or did I really believe in it. So I said, today I'm going to believe. And I'm going to do something different. And I wanted to go home and become successful. So I realized successful people come from college. I said, I'll go home, I'll go to college. So I had to pick a school. So I picked Harvard University.
Shooting for the moon.
No, I didn't know anything about ASU. They didn't tell me about, Miami or Michigan, Ohio State. I don't know anything about colleges. Harvard is like 20 minutes from my house. I used to ride my skateboard there when I was a kid. That's why I picked it. It's the only one I knew the name of.
Wow.
And when I came out my cell the next day, I told all my friends, I figured it out. They said, what are you talking about? I said, I figured it out. said, I'm going home. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be successful. And I'm going to Harvard.
And you still had a lot of time on your sentence right at this point,
You
right?
sound like one of my friends now. See, they wanted to laugh at me, but I had a habit of stabbing people.
Okay, Andre, you going to Harvard.
But my friend pulled me to the side and said, Dre, what are you talking about? You can't go to Harvard. I said, why? They said, you're black. I said, I know that. They said, you're in the hole for trying to kill 8 people. I said, I know that. You're a gang member. I said, I know that too. Your family's poor. You can't read. You dropped out of high school. He told me every reason why I couldn't go. And I just brushed him aside. I called my mom. She didn't really believe. I called my grandmother. She didn't believe. I called my dad. He definitely didn't believe. He told me, that's not who we are. That's not what we do. I'm going to get you a job in the factory when you come home. I said, Dad, I want to work in the factory. He says, but that was my dad's reality. He grew up in Virginia, illiterate, moved to Boston, only did manual labor jobs. So for him, a factory job was a good job. And my not wanting to accept it was being defiant. So I just blocked all of them out. I signed up for a GED program, got my GED, then took that GED, then I went down to the law library and I taught myself the law. Then I started fighting my cases on appeal. I won an appeal. Then I started going to counseling because I had a slight anger management problem. A little bit. And I started going to counseling and programs in the school every single day. And for 8 years, I worked every day, all day. And November 15th, 1999, I walked out with a GED and a dream. And my dream was to go to Harvard and to make a difference. And when I walked out, I went from the prison to the parole office to a youth center. I started talking, there was like 15 little black kids who were teenagers in gangs in juvenile detention. I said, you're going to jail not because you're black. You're going to jail not because you smoke weed or carry a gun. You're going to jail because you've been disappointed, let down, and distraught. You don't know how to process that emotion, so you act out. You self-medicate. And at 8 and 9, it was cute. But at 15 and 16, it's criminal. Let me show you how to process your pain. Let me show you how to handle that hurt so you can get your life on track. And I spent the next 3 years working with gang kids, boys and girls, in the city, helping every day. Then somebody came and did an assessment of my program, and the lady told me, you're denying kids. I'm like, what are you talking about denying kids? She said, yeah, there's some kids you won't help because they're white. I'm like, white? Man, white kids ain't got no problems. I'm like, they got the presidency, they own the Congress, they own all the businesses, they own all the land, they own everything. They own the sports teams. Yeah, we play on them, but they own them. And I just went down my list. I said, I can take you over to the hood right now and show you somebody struggling, on crack, struggling, kids hungry, struggling. You talking about some rich white kids in a big house? Come on, we wish we had that. And me and the lady went back and forth. She trying to tell me that they need help. I'm laughing at her. Like, you lady, I'll take you to the hood right now and show you who needs help. Now at the end, I said, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go to one of the white schools just to prove you wrong. We called up a white school, set it up, went to a white school in an all-affluent neighborhood. They had to tell them what kind of car I was driving so I didn't get pulled over. I get to the school and all these little rich white kids started pouring in and sitting in the chairs, the little outfits on, cell phones, looking all neat. Beautiful auditorium. Beautiful. State of the art. Mini opera hall. I mean, we got a gym. We use a gym for auditorium. They got an opera. I'm like, listen, it was just all reinforcing that they're good. I started talking to the kids. And I discovered they do drugs at the white school. I kept talking. They drink at the white school. Drink heavy. Kept talking. They have bullies at the white school. They're having sex at the white school. They get kids who don't fit in at the white school. I mean, every issue we had, they had, just in a nicer building. Every issue we had, they had, just in a nicer house. And when I walked out of that school, I realized that I was wrong. And I said to myself, never again will I judge somebody based on my ignorance. If I'm not sure, I'll go find out. And I started working with white kids and black kids and Spanish kids and kids in the suburbs, kids in rural areas. And I said, my policy was if you call me, I'll show up. And that's how I spent the last 18 and a half years of my life.
Wow.
Just showing up. I don't have a game plan. I don't have anything specific I'm going to say. There's nothing in a can. Because every kid and every situation is different. Every company and every situation is different. Every parent and every situation is different. So I don't come with pre-described things. I just show up, and my biggest tool, my biggest weapon, is the ability to listen. And I listen. And if you listen, that pain will speak to you. Then you speak back to the pain.
Yep. Pain is universal. It's colorless. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely all those things.
So I saw a video of you in Guatemala, which is completely different than some of the things that we're talking about inner city kids here. It's, there's problems everywhere. So what were you doing? What kind of advocacy work were you doing there?
I had been on the stage with Richard Branson. I've been on the stage with the Dalai Lama. I've been on the stage with Les Brown. I've been on the stage with a lot of people. And there was some folks in Guatemala who, unbeknownst to me, found my website and saw my Facebook and saw the pictures I was posting. So they sent me a message saying, hey, Andre, we're down here in Guatemala. We see that you're really made a turnaround in your life. And would you consider doing a Skype call with our kids? I'm not a techie, so I know what a Skype call was. So I said, what is that? He said, well, we'll put you in front of a computer in Boston. We'll put our kids in front of a computer here in Guatemala, and then you talk to them. I said, well, I'm not big on it. How about this? Come down there. They said, we don't have money to fly you down. I said, well, do you have an airport? They said, yes, we have an airport. I said, if you pick me up from the airport, I'll get myself to the airport. Never been to Guatemala before in my life. Didn't know where it was. I booked the ticket. I flew to Guatemala. They picked me up, and we spent 5 days doing outreach in the city.
Wow.
Antigua, Guatemala City. We went to the trash dumps. We're all over the place. I'm training NGOs. I'm working with gang members. I'm working with local companies. Then at one of the stops, a little girl came up to me, and she said, it was translated for me, would I come to her house? So I took the whole squad. It was me, the directors, and we took the whole thing. We went to her house. We interviewed her mother, interviewed the father. He had 4 kids, so we're signing them all up for school. I mean, they sleep on the ground. They use cardboard for beds.
Wow.
They take a cardboard box. This is in their homes, and it's put on the ground, and they consider that a bed. All day, their grandmothers will go out and collect sticks and come home and light a fire to cook with and to heat the house, and they're killing themselves from the smoke. So you feed yourself and you heat yourself, but you kill yourself. I mean, I think they have some really, really low death rate. It's they're dying at 37 or something. Because you grow up just inhaling all this smoke from this burning wood inside the house. And the father came to me. He said, Andre, I want to thank you. I said, for what? He said, you brought education to my house. He said, when my first son was born, I started praying that my kids could be educated and have a better life. Then my daughter, then my third daughter, and then my fourth daughter who invited you. He said, I've been praying for over 15 years that my kids could be educated. And you brought education to my house. So I just want to say thank you. And at first, I was like, it's all good, no problem. And I realized what he was saying. He's been praying to his God, and he's a diehard Catholic. He's been praying to God for 15 years. And for some reason, God tapped me and had me deliver this miracle. I didn't think myself worthy. I wasn't a full Catholic. And I thought of all the reasons why not me. But at the end of the day, it was me. Because his miracle was delivered by me, through me. And it was just humbling that you never know when you're going to get that call. And God is universal to all people. And if you listen, he has a mission for you. And hopefully you carry it out. And I remember when they called me to be on your show, they're like, hey, you're going to be on the podcast. I was like, cool. I said, where's it at? They said, it's in Phoenix. I said, how are we going to do this? On Skype? I was like, I told my person, I said, how about this? Go out there. They said, they're not going to fly you out to Phoenix to do a podcast. I said, I'll fly myself out. If they'll come meet me at the airport, I just like being in person. There's something to be said about being present. Mm-hmm. If I'm with you, then there's no reason I shouldn't sit here. There's nothing against anybody else. People have the way they live their lives. But if I'm going to be with you, I'm going to be right here with you. No technical glitches and feeds dropping. No, if I'm with you, I'm with you. And I like what you're doing. I like what you're doing. I like what you're about. So that's why I jumped on the plane. I said, I go to Phoenix.
And true to your title, you're sprinkling hope all over every city you go to. Who can I talk to? Who's in need? Where can I go?
Yeah, the plan was to come for the day, fly in, do the podcast, and fly out. And once we got here, I started looking around. I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of people in need here. So with your help and the help of some other friends, we're going to do what turn into a one-day podcast to a 3-day outreach tour. So I think we have 4 speeches set up between today and tomorrow, and we got a whole nother day. So if you know somebody that needs a speech, give us a call. We're volunteering. This isn't about money. This is about making a difference.
We're going to fill your schedule up. So something that I really wanted to talk to you about was on your TED Talk, you had some great ideas about shaking up the prison system, kind of revolutionizing the way we're doing. And I like your approach of starting with not the prisoners as the ones who need the help, but the ones who are running the institutions so that it can trickle down. So what are some of your ideas on reforming the prison system?
In order to reform the prison system, you can't start with the inmates. The inmates come and they go, and they have problems and issues they're coming with and they're leaving with. They're the non-constant force. They will always be prisoners, but they always won't be the same. The difference is the staff. When somebody goes to get a job at a Department of Corrections, Federal Bureau of Prisons, or House Correction, or wherever they go, it's like a 30-year job. Most often, it's a career. Mm-hmm. You go in at 18 or 19, you retire at 60. That's 30 years. No, that's 40 years. That's a 40-year career. If you give me 50 prisoners, you can be the 50 worst prisoners in the country, and you stick us in a room and you leave us. You come back in 2 years, you have college degrees in that room, you have outreach workers in that room, you have helpers in that room, you have people who've turned around. We actually did that in Trinidad. They took me to Trinidad, they rounded up the top 50 gang leaders from the country who were incarcerated, all with murder charges. Stuck us in one room for 4 days and closed the door. They expected to come back and to see bodies all over the place. When they came back, there were people talking in agreement, peace treaties, gang treaties, people willing to help each other, finding ways to help other people who weren't in that condition, because I can do that. You give me 50 guys, regardless how bad you think they are, there's good in them and I'll find it. But if you give me 50 staff, you let me help them understand what they're dealing with and how to make it better. I can show you I won't give you, but I can show you 2,000 to 3,000 people with lives turn around. Prison staff have the biggest influence and effect on inmates because they're there all day, every day. Volunteers come in, programs come in, schools come in, churches come in, do everything they want to do wonderfully. But if that one CO who's not with the program walks into an inmate cell and flips his mom's picture on the floor and steps on it, knocks his daughter's trophy on the floor and steps on it, 3 months, 3 years, 10 years, the program just went out the window. You have to get the buy-in from the prison staff, not just the program staff, the nursing staff, the correctional staff. Because again, they have the biggest influence and most direct time with the inmates. So I'm working at an agency called ACA, American Correctional Association. They have conferences twice a year. And I go to the conferences and I do trainings for prison staff around understanding best practices, how to avoid inmate manipulation, all the things that are going to make them better. Because I want that man or that woman who's in jail or prison to come home and be a mom or dad to their kids to stop the cycle. If you want to stop the school to prison pipeline, it starts with correctional officers because they have the opportunity to input some really good stuff into these men and women that'll make a difference in their lives.
I think that's wonderful. COs can be some of the nastiest people in a prison, so to kind of get their buy-in and empower them instead of, them managing people, turn them into uplifters of people, I think that's
I mean,
on
COs
the
are
point.
nasty, and some of the inmate population is nasty as well. So it's, when you put somebody in a situation, most of the prison staff don't come from the hood, don't come from extreme violence, don't come from extreme drug use. They might have been around. I heard that. If it wasn't, I could have easily been there with you. I got away, though. No, you didn't. I don't know how many houses you robbed. You know what I'm saying? Because you got drunk one day and then get pulled over doesn't mean you should have been in state prison.
Right.
And unless you run around robbing people, which most of them weren't, they don't come from that culture. They don't really understand the motivation that it takes somebody to do the things that they did that were being done by the inmates. So it's just totally different worlds that you thrust together, and they're opposite ends of the spectrum. So you're law-abiding, I'm a criminal. You're not a drug user, I'm a drug user. You're nonviolent, I'm violent. You believe hitting women is wrong, I believe it's right. And it's just polar opposites. Then you get the keys to my cell, I'm locked in it. It just goes and goes and goes. So where animosity starts at the front door. The prison guard truly had nothing to do with me going to prison. I was at home, I got up, I went out and did whatever I did. And while I was doing that, the prison guard was at the jail. When I got arrested, he was at the jail. When my lawyer and me went to court and went bad, he was at the jail. The first time I meet the prison guard is after I've been arrested, arraigned, tried, and convicted. They drop me off at the prison to I meet the prison guard. And he gets the worst of my temper, attitude, and life. So he's going to match me where I come in at. And he becomes a focal point of my animosity and my hatred toward the system, even though he had zero to do with it. And that's why I try to explain to guys, I'm not a lover of COs, but 100% of the time, there's a good chance it had nothing to do with your case. Coming or going. So why are you spending all your day hating them? Because it's easier to hate the CO than to focus on my own issues. They're just my scapegoat for not wanting to deal. And they're easy scapegoats.
That's a good point. So something, going back to that scared young guy, the white guy, he's curled up on his bed, horrified, probably scared to death. Going back to him, something else that you talked about was sentence grouping, how that might have helped him.
The way prison's set up now, if you take 3 individuals. One guy stole a car, he has 3 years. They put him at the maximum security prison. One guy sold drugs, he has 10 years. He goes to maximum security prison. One guy murdered 4 people, he has life. They go to maximum. They're all in the same housing unit. The guy doing 2 years, the guy doing 10 years, the guy doing forever. You stick them all in the same space. Now what happens over time is longevity and time in gives you the opportunity to dominate the space. So if I have 40 years to do and I'm in the same unit for 10 of them, I've kind of mastered and dominated the space. So when people come into the system, they have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, they'll never get to the place of mastery over me or dominion. So when you just stick people in there and you leave them, I got a cousin, Scrap Iron. He's doing life. He literally spent 22 years in the same cell.
Wow.
At one prison. So you come get a job at 25, you start your job. At 35, at 45, Scrap Iron's still in that same cell. In your mind, that's his cell. It's not even the state's anymore. That's just his. He's been in that thing so long, it's his. He's like part and parcel. He's part of the furniture. And in that, you're going to give him leeway. You're going to give him certain breaks because, that's Scrap, that's his cell. We're not going to bother him. You're not there to bother or not bother. You're there to help people get better. And when you stick groups and groups of people and you leave them for long periods of time, they form cliques, they form gangs, they form control over the institution from that standpoint. So if you have like 50 guys doing forever and they all click up, they'll dominate the prison. And every time somebody else comes through, they have to deal with this 50. So I'm doing 3 years, I got to deal with these 50 guys who are never going home. And it's a no-win. And as long as the inmates are running the facilities, the people will never get better. I love my brothers. I'll forever advocate for them. But the truth is, if the inmates are in charge, the chance of people getting rehabilitated or programs or put in the right space is very little. Because that's not what they're trained to do. They've been trained to be criminals. They've been trained to be hostile. They've been trained to be violent. And that's what they're going to share. So at one level, we need people who've been trained to be therapeutic, to be about solutions and about restitution in charge.
So if you had one thing that you could ask of the everyday person, all of us out there, to join you and help advocate, one thing that we can do to make a difference, what would that be?
If I could ask one thing of the general public to make a difference in prison life, that's a tough one. Because becoming educated, you really can't. You really can't choose sides because there's a prison view, prisoner's view, and then society's view, then there's the victim's view, which is often left out. One thing I can ask of citizens, that the citizens will collectively organize to try to make these facilities places of rehabilitation, because we call them Department of Corrections. but it's really Department of Punishment. I do not disagree that punishment isn't part of the process and should be, because if you hurt my mother, my aunt, my sister, I believe you need to be punished. So I am completely against the death penalty unless you kill my child. Then it's a different story. So I get it. If I could ask Joe Citizen and Jane Citizen anything, it was, we have people, they're going to be confined from 1 to 10 to 20, 30 years. Their punishment is being removed from society. That's their punishment. Their punishment shouldn't be being condemned to the same damnation that got them there. Because as citizens of this country, in this great country, if we don't fix this one specific problem, rehabilitating people while they're incarcerated, I said this during my TED Talk, there's 700,000 people coming home from prison every year, and 70% of them will go back. That's a large number of people. But for each one of them to go back, you know what they need? A new victim. Prisoners generally don't go back to jail without a new victim. So you might not care anything about the inmate. You might not care anything about the guy or the lady who's sentenced to 10 or 20 years. And I get that. They haven't really earned that trust with you or that space with you. But if I could sit you in that chair, and I can get Miss Smith, who lives in the south side of Phoenix, whose son is going to be murdered by one of these people, whose daughter is going to be raped by one of these people, whose business is going to be scammed by one of these people. And they could ask you, Joe Citizen, can you please rehabilitate this person? You're going to hold them for 20 years. And if you do nothing, me and my family will become victims. So I'm not asking you to help the inmates for the sake of the inmates. You're making the country better because we're minimizing the assaults, we're minimizing the rapes, we're minimizing the murders. They're going to take place if we do nothing.
That's a unique perspective. I'd never thought of it that way.
I mean, most of the focus is they did crime, they need to suffer. Well, 30 years without your family is suffering. 25 years in a confined cell, that's suffering. I get the suffering part. I'm not saying let people out early. I'm not saying absolve them, and let's say we sign sorry papers. If the judge said 20 years away from your family and away from society is your punishment, trust and believe that's a punishment. Go lock yourself in the bathroom for 6 hours and see how you feel. But 20 years in a confined facility is punishment. Not allowing that person to learn how to read, learn how to write, learn how to process their emotions is to no benefit. There's no benefit to you as Joe Citizen if you keep this person crippled in their emotions, crippled by drugs, and crippled by bad decisions and criminal behavior. There's no benefit. The only benefit is going to be is none. There is no benefit. The only guarantee you will have is somebody's family is going to be victimized again. And if I could sit you with that family, they're going to say, you had them for 15 years. Why didn't you try to make them better? I'm not asking you to let them go early, but while you have them, what is the big thing about making them better so they don't do it again? Because if you don't retrain them or train them correctly the first time, they will do it again. The numbers are out, the stats are out, the documented proof is out, empirical data. 70% of inmates will reoffend. At what point are we going to say that's 70% of victims that is not acceptable?
That's 700,000 reasons why we should be putting more into corrections, not just the punishment, and send people free.
No.
Worse off than when they came in.
I am completely understanding our system is if you commit a crime, you do a certain amount of time behind locked doors. I'm not acting you. That's the system. I'm not touching that. But while they are there, why not educate them?
Right.
There are stats and studies that show a man who comes home with a college degree is less likely to go back. A man that comes home with a GED is less likely to go back. A man that comes home with a skill is less likely to come back. A man who's completed therapeutic and mentoring and mental health program is less likely to go back. I'm not saying let them out one day early. I'm not asking that. I'm saying educate them, empower them to be citizens. Because at the end of the day, crime doesn't take your citizenship away. So as an American citizen, born and raised, You can commit 30 crimes. It doesn't take you do not lose your citizenship. In some states, you might lose your right to vote, which I don't understand, but you do not lose citizenship by committing crimes if you're an American citizen, period. Now, you might deport people who came in from another country. That's a whole other ballgame. 90% of these guys are born and raised right here in this country, so you can't deport them. You can't. And at the rate we're going, we went from 1 million to 2 million, now we're heading to 3. At some point, it's going to be 1 million people a year getting out of jail. Then it's 700,000 new victims every year because we're spending I can't even count the billions of dollars on a correction system that doesn't correct anything.
Wow. And all this talk about making America great again, and it reminds me that we need to start with the people who need it most. We need to start there. It's not about making the people who are already good even better. You know, we've got to start with the worst of the worst of the worst and helping put a little hope in them.
The Make America Great Again is a great concept. And the president came out with that. That was his tagline. That was his motto all through the campaign. And there is the people who don't like the president, people who do like the president. There were some people who didn't like the last president and did like him, and the one before him and the one before him. We can argue for the next 3.5 years about how much we like or don't like the president. And that argument will sway over to the next one and to the next one. And it's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. And it's a waste of resource. There are people in this country who need that energy, who need that attention, who need that focus. The man is the president, if you like it or not.
I like the saying. I don't care who said it. I like the saying. I say, you know, if you want to make America great, it starts with putting a kernel of hope in every citizen in this nation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. You can't will them out of the office. The next election, if you don't like them, don't vote for them. And convince people to vote the way you want to vote. But that's our society. You get a chance to vote. You get a chance to elect. Ideally, once that process is done, we move on. And now let's make America great again. He won. At the end of the day, he won. So let's go. When Barack won, I was cool with that. So Trump's won. Let's go. I mean, I'm not going to stop being American because Trump won. I'm not going to stop being, I didn't double down on being American because Barack won. We have a president, we have a system, and we have people in need.
There's work to be done.
And for all the people who want to spend all this time complaining about things that they cannot change in the instant, when there are things that you can change. Your time, your energy, your resources, your intellect can make differences in all parts of society.
I love it. All right, I've got some rapid fire questions for you. You ready?
I have some rapid fire answers.
All right, first one.
New England Patriots are the greatest football team alive. I grew up on the Steelers, fell in love with the Raiders, but I am officially, since Steve Grogan days, a New England Patriot fan.
We're going to put that on the record. It's
Celtics.
on there.
Let's go Celtics.
All right, I like the Celtics too. All right, so what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? What keeps me up at night is, like everybody in our society who has information, because we all have life history, I'm worried about not documenting my history, not sharing my information, and making it available. And what keeps me up at night is I want to help more people. I definitely want to help more people.
What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? I am most proud of my mother, Cheryl Ann, can walk this earth and she can say my name with pride. For 14 years, my mother would go to work and women talk about their kids every day, and she couldn't mention my name with pride. She would go to church, she couldn't mention my name. She'd go to family gatherings, and they all knew where I was, and she couldn't say my name. Or my son's in a gang, my son's doing 10 years, my son got locked down, he's got in a riot. And that had to hurt, to raise a child, give birth to a child, then can't say his name with pride. So for the last 18 and a half years, my mother could say my name with pride. Where's your son at now? Oh, he's in Phoenix helping some kids. Where was your son at last week? Oh, he was in Ohio at a treatment center helping people get their lives together. Where's he going to be next week? Oh, he'll be in Louisiana. He'll be in Louisville. He'll be in Charlotte. Where's he going to be next month? Oh, he's at Harvard. I got tickets. You want to go? And if she doesn't know where I'm at, she has faith and confidence I'm doing something good. So for the rest of her days, my mother can say her son's name with pride.
How many times have you been to Harvard now?
How many times have I been to Harvard? When I first came home, I started doing lectures at the Divinity School, at the School of Afro-Am, at the law school. I probably did like 7 to 10 presentations. Then Henry Louis Gates had a program called the MLK Project, where he created a black encyclopedia, and they had an after-school program. So I got to go up and sit down in a session with his staff, not him, about that program and be helpful, because they were having little glitches with the program. It was the funniest thing. They had all these kids in the after-school program, and the kids stopped coming, and they couldn't figure out why. So they brought in every specialist and scientist known to man, because it's Harvard. Then they finally brought me in. My boss suggested me. I'm sitting down with these folks on this big house on Brattle Street in Harvard Square. They had a nice dinner and laid out, and they started talking. And they explained to me the whole situation, how the kids were going, and it was wonderful, and in year 2 was great. In year 3, everybody's dropped off. And they told me they brought in this doctor and this specialist, and I kept saying, well, what did the kids say? What did the kids say? And they kept telling me, no, we talked to this specialist, and this. I said, no, what did the kids say? And they finally realized, like, y'all didn't talk to the kids? They're the ones who know why they're not coming. I don't care who you bring in. If you ask them, they will tell you. Then the light bulb went off. And they figured it out, that they should just talk to the kids. It was like a Harvard thing, disconnect. So they rushed us out. The party's over, but only me and my boss left. They all stayed. We got outside. He said, Andre, he said, give me $20,000. I said, man, I got $20,000. I've only been home from jail for 9 months. He said, no, give me $200,000. I said, what do you want $200,000 for? He said, that's what you just gave them in information. He said, you just gave them $200,000 worth of information for free, which made me understand that my information has value. Mm-hmm. And that was what the boss, we fell out 100 years ago, but that's my guy, kind of, sort of. But he taught me the value of my information. And then in 2015, under Charles Ogletree, at his Institute for Race and Justice, they hired me as a fellow. And I got my email, anorman@law.harvard.edu.
High five that.
So all y'all people from 1991 who said it wasn't possible because I was black, because I was a criminal, because I was stupid, and everything else, all my friends from the dummy class, all the people who just didn't believe, it's not for you. This is from Miss Oliver. This is Mr. Bevilacqua. This is from Miss Ellis, Mr. Solis, my GED teacher, my mental health counselors, my #1 mentor, Natan, my 2 mentors, Ruth and Kathleen, and everybody else who believed. Pat Dempsey, still got you. And we can do it. Success is possible when people believe, and we have the ability to believe in them.
What is happiness to you?
Happiness to me is the ability to give back. I was taught a saying, success is not a success without a successor. So happiness to me is the ability to give back and to help somebody step up, whether they're in Guatemala, whether they're in West Africa, Saudi Arabia, or Sweden, whether they're in a private school in the suburbs or they're in an inner city school in the hood. I just learned that everybody needs help. I work with some of the biggest companies in the world. I work with some of the smallest guys on the planet. And everybody needs a nudge. And I'm just happy that I can sometimes be that nudge or that little light that shines on. And there's no greater feeling that I've ever had than to see somebody get it and that light comes on. Because then the biggest thing is for me to get out of the way. Don't crowd them. Don't smother them. Don't try to micromanage them. When the light comes on for your mentee or that person you're talking to, get out the way. Because their higher power has them now. They've connected. You might have been the light switch, but you're not the higher power. So I enjoy being the light switch. I'm clear I'm not the source of energy. So what's happy for me is I get to be that person to make the light go on and then just watch them shine.
When is the last time you belly laughed?
The last time I belly laughed? I don't know. I don't think we do that where I come from.
What?
Listen, belly laughing is like uncool in the hood, just for GP. You know what I'm saying? So Dave Chappelle, funny guy, love Dave. Dave's got me a few times. Who else? I used to love Charlie Murphy. I am so sorry Charlie Murphy's gone. Charlie was like the unofficial funny. I mean, he was just like super funny without even trying. This is his personality. Love Charlie Murphy's attitude. Who else makes me laugh? Who's super funny? I guess Charlie Murphy and Dave Chappelle top my list. I mean, you can go old school with Richard Pryor, but that's like a long, long time ago.
Awesome.
I used to be a comedian. I got jokes. People, you know me. You know they think it's sarcastic. And I get the sarcasm from Mom. Thanks, Mom. But my jokes are like real. And it's going to hurt your feelings and make you laugh.
All at the same time.
Your mom taught me well.
It's a 1-2 punch.
She's like, that was kind of close to home. Those are the best jokes. They're the ones that are rooted in realness.
Yes.
So I'm really good at being sarcastic and funny. But hats off to Dave. Hats off to God rest and R.I.P. for our brother Charlie Murphy. Super funny guy.
How can our viewers find you?
Come see Emily. If you want to find Andre Norman, I made it real difficult. My website is andrenorman.com. My Instagram is @AndreNorman. My Facebook is Andre Norman. Ready for the email?
I'm bracing for it.
Brace for it. It's DRE@AndreNorman.com.
Easy enough.
Listen, I try to make it difficult. My Twitter is Andre Norman.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so if you go to any Google or YouTube or whatever your search choice is, just type in Andre Norman, and I'll pop up someplace, and my website will come up, and just shoot me an email. And I love to hear from you, and I'll get back to you, and Godspeed.
If you need to shake up your industry, click on the links below, contact Andre, find out when he's in your city, connect with him. You won't regret it. Thanks for watching.
Can I tell them one thing?
Yeah.
If you're going to bring me to your city to help your company or to help your industry, that's great. If you're not trying to help the community at large, whether it's a private school, public school, a health center, or a homeless shelter, don't call me. If all you want is a 60-minute speech and you can throw some money at me, there are hundreds of people in the country and the world who will take that check. If you don't want to make an impact, then we can't work together. I am all about making a difference. I will come to your city only if we can help the city. I'm all for helping your business, but there are people in your city beyond your business that need you, and there's no charge. I will do everything beyond your company as volunteer. But if you don't give me the chance to volunteer, I'm going to go to that city that will.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's go out in Phoenix and spread some hope.
We're going to Phoenix. Are y'all ready?
Sprinkling the hope.
I don't really sprinkle stuff.
I sprinkle.
You sprinkle. I throw stuff. Tom Brady, we throw touchdowns.
Thanks for being here, Andre.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Share the Love. Make sure to give us a thumbs up, share, and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Google Play to get the latest content.